Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to make this resin mask I made. Um, it's based off a mask I made out of monster clay, and then I painted it red. So here are the basic supplies. I have the brushes, I have the 5X, which thickens up the silicone, and then I have these measuring cups for mixing. So inside the box, what do I have? I have the 65D and the Rebound 25. The Rebound 25 is what I'm going to use first to make the mold. It comes in two parts. And first I'm going to mix it. Now you want to mix it really well. Make sure you scrape the bottom. Make sure that you get some of the contents on the bottom up to the top so that the whole thing is mixed around. So what I do is really scrape the bottom and then lift it and scrape those contents from the bottom onto or off of the stick so they end up at the top part of the container and all the contents get mixed around nice. See, so I'm going to do the exact same thing with part B. And then I'm going to pour this. Now I'm going to eyeball it. I know I said I had measuring cups, and you can measure it. There's no problem with that to make sure it's exact, but you can also eyeball it. I found that this stuff is actually really forgiving, and if you eyeball it, just like with the 65D, it'll work just fine. So I'm pouring it out, pouring it back in, trying to make sure they're even. Now I'm simply just mixing them. And then you can see the mask that I'm going to put it on that will eventually become the wearable mask. Now here I am mixing it up. Once it's all the same color, you're ready to go. Now the first layer is definitely the most important because it's the one that captures all the detail. You want to make sure you get all the holes, cracks, and crevices filled so you can get every detail and there are no bubbles. So you want to do this part carefully. And then when you put on the subsequent layers, you can be a little more sloppy because you've already had the detail layer put on. So this is about 2 layers, and this is all the mess I made just to show you what a mess you can make with this stuff. So now I'm putting on the layer with the 5X. You're going to see I'm going to put the 5X in. This thickens it up. Why do you want to thicken it up? Because it allows you to put a thick layer on with just 1 or 2 passes. Without this, you'd have to put on like 8 layers because what happens is you put it on the face and then it rolls down the side, it slides down the side, and you're only left with a really thin layer. With this stuff, it's like turns it basically into like frosting, so you can make a thick layer with just 1 or 2 passes. And here we go. This is it dried after about 6 hours. Again, this is the mess I made. And now I'm simply cutting the edges to make the mold a little cleaner. And now I'm going to put on the plaster cloth. Now, I actually don't like this plaster cloth. What I found is that even though it does an okay job, it really crumbles and breaks up into small pieces and it's messy. So when you're trying to make your actual resin copy, it gets in the resin or it falls on the floor, and I just don't really like this stuff. What's a much better idea is to put maybe 1 layer of the plaster cloth and then cover that with like dental stone, and you'll have a great shell. So here we are with the shell and the mold. You can see I can take it out. I can pop it right out. And first it can be kind of a hassle to put back in, but you'll get it to a point where you can just slide it right back in with no problems. Okay, and now we are ready to pour. So here I have my mixing sticks to mix the two parts alone in their containers. And then I have these two sticks to mix the two parts together once I've put them in the same cup. This is of course the mold. Then I have some black dye. I have my respirator because the fumes can be really strong and it can give you a headache or make you sick. And of course I have my nitrile gloves to protect my hands. And then I have the plastic sheet to protect the floor. Now this the 65D has much lower viscosity, so it's much easier to mix than the Rebound 25. So you just give it a good mix, put equal parts together, and add the dye, and then you're ready to pour. So those original sticks, you can see it was one stick, I broke it into two. Then I use those sticks, those separate two sticks, to mix each part separately in their container. And of course I have the two smaller sticks to mix together the resin once I've put them in the same cup. I add the dye, mix that in part A, and then I'm going to mix it together with part B. And then I have about 3 or 4 minutes of working time before it starts to harden up and get thick and gooey. Now this is actually really important. This is a drawing I made of a top view of my mask, and you'll see there are undercuts on the sides of the face of the head. You want to have those undercuts because they form little walls that make it so the resin isn't going to pour out over the side when you're slushing it around. See how there's a little wall right there, so the resin's not going to pour out? That's super important to have on the original mask that you make. They're called undercuts. Now here I am pouring it in. I'm rubbing it a little with my fingers to get any bubbles out to make sure all the details show up. And then I'm just pouring it. And you can see because I have that little wall, I don't have to really worry about it pouring out. Now I'm letting it harden and thicken up on the bottom part of the mask, which is actually the forehead, because I want that part to be thicker than the rest. And I'm going to let that happen on both sides actually eventually. I'm going to make sure that the forehead and the two sides of the face are both thicker than the rest of the face. And I do that just for strength, just to give the whole structure more strength. And here I am just mixing the parts together again for my second layer. You should probably do, I would say, about 3 or 4 layers to have it as strong as possible. It just depends. I think some people might make it less, some might make it a little more. And you can see it turned gray. It was black, but it turned gray. Why is that? Because the actual color of the resin is white. So it looks black when you put the dye in, but then when it cures, it turns white, and mixed with that black dye becomes a gray. So here I am again, slushing it around, pouring it around. Now I could pull it out with just 2 layers, but it would just be really thin and it wouldn't be very strong. So the more layers you put, the stronger it'll be. It'll also be heavier, but you just have to decide for yourself how you want that to be. See, I'm letting it rest. I'm letting it harden at the bottom or on the side of the face. That's on purpose because I want that side, those 2 sides, to be thick, just like the forehead is. Again, I'm making another layer. Just slushing it around. If I hadn't made the undercuts on the original Monster Clay mask, the clay version that I made the mold from, this would be so hard to do because I would just be spilling resin everywhere because the resin wouldn't be protected. So here again is the original, and here is what a copy looks like. I'll pop this right out. You can see little pieces flying off. So it looks pretty good. You can see the eyes and the back of the mask still need to be trimmed. Little pieces of plastic, but that's easy to do. So here's one version, gray and black. Here's like a silver and black. Here's a pink and black. Here's a blue. Here's the resin one I was wearing in the first image, the first part of the video. And here I am again. This is what it looks like when it's done. Pretty good, I think. I'm definitely happy with it. So, thank you so much for watching.